Welcome back to another episode of That's Business. Today's guest, AJ Doppke, has over a decade of marketing experience and has worked with Fortune 500 brands, including Target, Hitachi, and AutoZone. Yet his true passion is empowering local Michigan brands to distinguish themselves and achieve results beyond imagination. As the co-founder of Marketing Qubed, AJ's goals are driven by his Michigan roots and a commitment to local business growth. AJ, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. We have a lot of good things to talk about marketing-wise. As a child, did you know you always wanted to go into marketing or?
Well, first off, thanks, Angela. Excellent intro. I really appreciate that. Super excited to be on the podcast. I mean, yeah, as when I was younger, it was always marketing. It's kind of funny because I feel like a lot of people, they fall into their careers or they start out in one spot and end up at another. And that's usually the way it goes. But for me, even late, mid, high school, I just really found a love and a passion for marketing because it was kind of combining those two pieces of psychology plus, numbers and sales and analytics. So you kind of had those two different pieces combined, which is really cool.
And there's so much, of course. I mean, if you're not doing some type of marketing now, you're obviously way behind in today's day and age. But I love that you bring up the psychology behind it because a lot of people don't realize like subliminal marketing and how that all works. So talk to us on what you mean by the psychology behind marketing and that partnership there.
There's a ton of great examples. I mean, if you look at some of the classic ones, there's a reason a lot of fast food chains, their colors are red or red and yellows because it makes people hungry for whatever reason. There's the psychology behind why would you pay, more money for a Coach bag versus a bag you can find at your, local department store, right? So all of that kind of ties into it. At Marketing Qubed, what we really talk about and think about is we have three parts to this equation, which is we have data, we have creativity, and then we have the third part, which is the human element. And I feel like a lot of times it gets lost, somewhere within the marketing piece. There's a lot of noise, a lot of white noise out there, but having a human element, what really connects with people, what drives people is where you can see big wins in marketing.
Well, and that's such an interesting point to bring up because I feel like a lot of marketing agencies are one or the other. It's like, we're creative, we're great, but we don't look at the analytics or, we're so analytic driven and okay, where's the in between? So how did you come up with this idea for this business and, correct me if I'm wrong, coming up with those three pillars, so to say?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I've worked in marketing for a long time. I've been on the back end of it, on the service side and actually doing the work. I've been on the front end with sales, working with clients. And what I commonly found was marketing companies, whether it's a firm or a publisher or whatever, they would sell us a service or a product to the end client, to the brand that needs the work done and the services done for marketing services. And not always was the best fit. And a lot of times it would even be, kind of something repeat or done already once before. So what I found is when things go really well for the client is when you have those three pieces all put together in the same bundle and not just saying, this is what we want to sell or what we make the most money on. So this is what we're going to push. Instead, let's focus we decided, let's shift gears. Let's change the focus on what's going to work best for the client and then what's going to work best for that brand and then deliver on those services.
Without giving away the secret sauce of the formula that you do, how do you figure that out? And I love you bringing up, especially on your website, your bio and everything I've seen on you that, putting the client's needs first. And how have you seen success with that, owning your business?
It all comes down to partnerships and getting some experience, honestly. Like I like to say, there's a time to plan and there's a time for action. And we need to be able to do both. So from the partnership side, understanding the client's needs and what their real needs are, because they may say, hey, AJ, we want to increase our followers on social media. But at the end of the day, what they really want is more sales, right? So really understanding the true need of why they're working with you is the first part. And then actually taking action on it and making sure you do your research and you have some of that experience behind it to know what's going to work best for them. It's a lot of time and a lot of research and a lot of experience it comes down to.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you gave us just a snippet of the Fortune 500 companies you've worked with. So do you have, I hate the word niche, but I can't think of anything better right now, of niche clients you work with or certain industries you favor over others, or what's that look like in your client scope?
Yeah, we have a few core industries is what we call them. It's all Michigan based and locally. We have worked to some out of state, and that's, every once in a while. But the core industries we really focus on are healthcare, home services like roofers, plumbers, that kind of thing. Financial, so banks, credit unions, mortgage brokers, and then nonprofits, that one is just more of a labor of love kind of thing.
That is such a wide range. And it's like, I feel like hitting on something individually. That's great. Now, I noticed too, you have multiple certifications, which is really great. So from this analytical perspective, because I feel like Google Ads is the big scary, that's so much money. I can't do that, especially a small business owner. So what are some of the I guess I say stipulations clients give you, or kind of like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. And why are Google Ads and doing those type of things important?
That's a great question. I'll say to start off, it's not always important for everyone. If it's a lifestyle brand, or if it's not necessarily lead generation focused, maybe Google Ads isn't the right route to go. And that just takes some experience in the industry to know what works best. But generally speaking, I mean, if you're looking at why digital marketing is important, the key thing there is that's where everyone's time is being spent. That's where people are going. If you can't be found on the first page of Google, you just can't be found. And that goes for a lot of things, though. But you can do really well in social media and make your mark there. You can do really well with SEO and on YouTube. Like there's a ton of different ways to get in front of people and in front of that right audience. I think the key thing is knowing where do they spend time, and then how does that fit into your business economics as well.
Where do you see some of, let's say, the top 3 issues businesses do with marketing, or things they should be doing and that they're missing out on, let's say?
Top 3 things they're missing out on.
Or they're not taking advantage of. Maybe we could say that.
Yeah. One of the top things where most businesses could do better is capturing short-term content for social media and video. As an entrepreneur, I fall into this myself, where I will very commonly put a barrier between myself and the brand. And when you're first starting out, the reason someone's going to work with you over someone else, whether it's a service you're providing or you're a retailer, whatever it is because of who you are at the end of the day, right? They can go out to the other 100 vendors and get something very similar as far as a service, but who you are and how you work with people and the partnerships you create, that's what makes you stand apart from everyone else. And the only way to show that is by actually showing yourself, right? Showing some personality behind things. So whether that's on social media, on YouTube, whatever, take short form content that you can use and put it out there. It's okay to put your face on the brand and put your face to the name. And I think a lot of businesses shy away from that because either they just don't want to be on camera, or they want to have this barrier between them and the business. And there is a time and a place to get to that stage. Like that's if you're just starting out, that's not quite it. But anytime that you put faces to the brand or put a personality on the brand, it accelerates so much better on any social media platform, any sort of like content forward platform. So that's the big one. You'd be surprised. Number 2 is actually just know your numbers, know the data. You'd be surprised how many.
Simple. Very
simple, right? Like, and everyone always says, oh yeah, know your numbers. But like in all reality, like, do you know how many people are coming to your site? Are you measuring that? What's measured gets managed. So know your numbers. Are people visiting your site? Are you getting the right kind of people to your site? All that's important. And know where those are coming from, where your best lead sources. And then the third one, gosh, I'd say, be open to trying new things, within reason, but be open to trying new things. So it's really knowing your audience, because, if I'm selling a lifestyle brand for custom dog leashes or dog collars, right? Maybe my audience isn't on Facebook. Maybe they're on Instagram, or maybe they're on TikTok, or maybe they're on YouTube. You just really have to know your audience, how to engage with them to make the biggest impact.
Those are 3 great points, because we've seen success with this in our own business, where I was not a social media person, hated my face in front of the camera. This is hilarious that we're recording on video now, and I'm not afraid to do video, but it really does make a difference of kind of getting that buy-in of you being the face of the brand. And yes, I'm not the only one that is a part of my own company. I do have employees, but people care. It's wild to me because I'm like, nobody cares about what I'm doing and nobody cares about this and that, but they do. My dog, all-star. Anytime we put pictures of Ruby or video of her, all-star. And she goes on the brand with her resume rescue. But I think it's interesting too, what's working for you and what's not, because I definitely made that mistake. I'm like, I got to do everything. I got to do it all. I got to be on all platforms. And then I burnt out and not everything made sense to us. And even just the lead capture of where your people are coming from, For us, it was just simply asking people in Calendly when they sign up, like, how'd you hear about us? I mean, it took 2 seconds to implement, and month to month it varies. I mean, LinkedIn was number 3 for us, and now it's been number 1 because we had a post go viral about being yourself and getting fired. So I'm so glad we got introduced to have this conversation, because marketing doesn't have to be the, what's a good word for it? The like, you got to do everything and come on, and you need to work for a big agency. And I know you could tell stories on that. So I love those points you bring up. I can say 5,000%. Now, with quite the variety of clients you work with in different industries, as you've mentioned, how do you identify where a client's clients are? How do you distinguish that difference of, oh, it makes sense for them to be on TikTok, or it makes sense to be X, Y, and Z? How does that work?
Yeah, we use a mix of third-party data and first-party data to do a lot of, this is more on the data side, as you can tell,
Yes.
to do a lot of the research. So first off, seeing what has traditionally worked, identifying their audience of who are they trying to attract and who do they want to work with. Where do those people spend their time? What are they doing now? And then identifying those gaps and fixing it. So if we're finding that for like a dentist, that people are spending more time researching a new dentist on Google search, we need to make sure they're doing SEO and Google search ads, but maybe they're trying to attract younger families, right? So they need to be on TikTok and Instagram as well, because that's where younger families or younger moms are going to spend their time, right? So simple things like that, but having the data behind it and doing the research behind it is the key part. That's the start. And then after we have campaigns running, we have data tracking and lead tracking in place, we can say, okay, Instagram is getting you a better ROI than TikTok is. So let's put more effort into Instagram and less effort into TikTok. And that's just kind of the cycles. Over time, as things change, or over time as like different platforms come out or we try different things, we see where the best ROI is. That's where we focus our efforts.
I'm sure it depends on client and what they're looking at too. But at what point does it make sense? Like you just said, oh, let's move to TikTok. Let's not focus as much on Instagram. Do you have kind of like a timeline you like to check that ROI, or what's your method again without giving away what you do in detail? You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we're checking every week that ROI piece. I think when we would make a decision to move away or move towards is usually within a 90-day period if we're seeing a trend that's long term. That way it's not just one piece of content went viral, so let's shift gears all of a sudden, So usually if it's like a 90-day trend where we're saying, okay, over 90 days, it's performed well above, 3 times better than the other platform, that's when we should shift gears and whatnot. What
are the top problems you and your company solve for businesses? We got the lead capture and the digital presence, but what are some of those other issues that maybe business owners aren't thinking about when they're listening to this podcast?
Some of the other issues or things that maybe business owners don't always think about is their positioning as well. Every business owner is going to tell you that their business is the best quality service or best quality product there is out there for whatever they're trying to do. And whether that's focused on a high volume, kind of situation where it's fast and quick and efficient, or they're just like top-notch quality, whatever that is, they'll say they're the best at it. Where we find a lot of businesses, a lot of our clients are lacking is the positioning of that. So the reason that you'll pay more for, a Coach purse versus your regular department store purse is because of positioning. There's a certain value associated with the brand itself. And if your brand doesn't come across that way in your other marketing efforts and your communication and being in touch with people and those touch points, then you can't charge that way. So we typically work really, really well with those clients that are, maybe they're not the most expensive, but they're higher a little bit than average because they offer excellent service. That's where there's a lot of room for growth, I think, for the people we work with.
Absolutely. Kind of a more fun question here. What are some of your favorite brands, or who do you think does a really great job with marketing?
It's funny. I listen to ads all the time and marketing messages all the time.
This is your whole world. Come on, AJ.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. We actually just did a review of, every year we do a review of the Super Bowl commercials. We did earlier this year. I shouldn't say we just did. That was a while ago.
Time's a construct this year. It's fine.
I know. I see favorite brands that do a really, really, really good job. gosh, who was it? There's one recently that did it really well. Peloton's is really, really good, I'll say. Peloton does a really good job of their marketing. It's just on point, connects with consumers. It's always done super well. There's Milk-Bone's been recently pushing out some new audio ads that have been on point and just super, super just like connect with the audience super well.
That brings up a great point. So when you're looking, and I love the analysis of Super Bowl commercials because that is my one. I will sit there and look through all of them. I mean, games, great, cool. I mean, hope the lines are in it and then I'll pay more attention and care about the game. But what are you looking for when you do this whole analysis of the Super Bowl commercials over each year?
Yeah, for the Super Bowl commercials, you have to remember you're spending, millions and millions of dollars for the, a couple of seconds. And it just hits the mark or it doesn't. And from that perspective, it's like, is it memorable? Does it get the message across? And is it something that people are going to talk about at the water cooler the next day? It's more of an event, right? If you think of your traditional advertising or traditional marketing, does it get the message across? Does it connect with the audience? Does it resonate? Super Bowl, because it's so big and so many people do watch it just for the ads, and like it's so impactful day for linear TV and even streaming TV ads. It needs to have that effect of, will people talk about it at the water cooler the next day? Are people going to talk about it in the office? Are people going to talk about it when they're shopping? Like, is it going to be a point of conversation? If it's not, it has failed. Plain and simple.
It's true. I find marketing so fascinating, and especially being a business owner, I mean, you have to look at the analytics and the numbers and see what's working and what's not. But some of the commercials, what's the one right now? Sir Kensington's that has been on this game I play because I'm an 80-year-old, but I love my little games on my iPad. It's a weird commercial. It's like, obey your tongue. And it's like a zombie. It's so freaking weird. But in my head, I'm like, this is making me uncomfortable. This is weird, but I remember it. So how is the differential? Because a lot of people that will talk at the water cooler of like, that commercial was so freaking weird, or this was so insane. I mean, what's the differential? Like, is the goal for people to talk about it? And that's why Sir Kensington's, for example, we're talking about on this podcast right now. Where do you kind of find that equilibrium of what makes sense to be like really out there or really kind of like hit home?
It goes back to knowing your audience, really, right? So if you need to figure out where that line is that you can, get close to but don't want to cross as a brand, you need to know what your brand is and who you serve. And then you need to know how formal and what your brand tone and brand voice and all that stuff is as well. If you look at any of the perfume or fragrance commercials, they're always very high lifestyle, high elegance feel to it. Whereas if you look at a Dorito commercial, it's like slapstick funny, because they just want anyone and everyone to buy their stuff, and that's it. So from a positioning standpoint, where does it make sense that you fall into? And then who is your audience? Is it everyone, or is it a few select people? Going back to the psychology of it, what emotion are you selling as well? When you're selling a product, especially when it comes to marketing, you're not selling the product itself. You're selling status, or you're selling an effect, or you're selling a feeling. It's not the product. The reason someone is going to buy, a great example, and I'm sure people have read Seth Godin's book, This is Marketing, will remember this, but great example, someone goes to a hardware store and they buy a screw. They're not buying a screw. They're buying the ability to build something or put it together or hang a picture on a wall. If they're buying a screwdriver, they don't just want that particular piece of equipment in their house. They want to, build something that's a nice bookshelf or, the back part of their office so that they're on office calls, they look cool, and everyone likes them and thinks that they're a cool person, right? So they're not buying a screwdriver, they're buying status. They're buying feeling good and cool and buying that kind of elevated experience. Where in marketing, we have to take it 2 steps farther than, hey, this is a nice screwdriver. We take it 2 steps farther and say, this screwdriver can help you build whatever you're dreaming of, right?
That was good. I was like, wow, like that makes so much sense, but it is true. For the screwdriver example, it's kind of a means to an end of this needs to be a piece to get to the end goal there. And people do forget that. It does make a difference of, like you said, the experience. And I love the argument like, oh, I can't do this business. I don't need to market. We get so many referrals, or, I don't need to do that. It's like, well, sometimes it just comes down to you being fun. We get a ton of clients because I'm this way with everyone. I swear, I'm sarcastic. I'm this way with my partner, my friends, my family, my clients, and people freaking love that, even if we're not the cheapest. And that's just what needs to be really hitting home is the marketing works around it. I mean, I can't stress this enough. And I love your approach to things because you are so different. And I have not heard of another marketing agency doing what you're doing and thinking of like the whole human and the whole person and the whole experience. So obsessed, 10 out of 10. But it's overwhelming, especially as a small business owner. Where do you start? How do you work? What do you do? How to stay up to date with the cool kids and the marketing trends? So what do you see kind of in the future or the near future, I guess we could say, where marketing's going and how do you stay like on trend tracking, I guess we can say, and stay hip with the cool kids?
Any industry, there is so much conversation about AI.
Yes.
And, how to leverage AI and whatnot. And in marketing, it's pretty similar that there's a lot of AI conversations being had. I think there are ways to leverage it and it's a tool in the tool belt, but I wouldn't necessarily rely 100% on AI because we've seen even just like a good example is recently with Google is when, AI content started becoming more accessible to people and to the general public. People were using it for their website and all this stuff. And Google, publishes an article saying, it's okay if you use AI content. That's cool. No worries. And then, a couple months later, they say, JK, it's not as good
All the worries.
Not as good if it was a real person that wrote the content. It's someone with, authority and expertise and that you can trust and whatnot. So with long form content, especially, it's kind of tricky because you have to be cautious in how you use it. But obviously, fact check everything because it's really more of a generative tool. It's not necessarily, it doesn't create something new like a human does. So all this is to say is, keeping up with the trends and keeping up with everything, you have to do your research. You have to subscribe to podcasts. You have to subscribe to newsletters. You have to be listening and learning and trying new things. If a new platform comes out, and you want to try it, take a look at it. But again, within reason. You don't have to do everything. Just find what's good and what works for you.
You have given so many great nuggets of advice already. But as we wrap this up, AJ, what advice do you have for listeners?
So my advice for listeners is twofold, one of which I already said. One is there's a time for planning, there's a time for action. If you're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, if you're thinking about taking a big leap there, or if you're just thinking of your next big career move, take time to plan and research it, but know that you need to take action as well. Don't be stuck in the planning phase for a year and look back and say, why haven't I tried it yet? The other big piece of advice that I give people, just generally speaking, is don't be afraid to ask questions. That's how you learn things. If you are in an interview and you want to understand more about the job, ask questions, right? You're interviewing them just like they're interviewing you. So if you're trying to learn more about, digital marketing, ask questions. If you are trying to start your own business and you have entrepreneurs around you, or you're just trying to get into the entrepreneurial field, and there's other peers you can talk to, ask questions. You can learn a lot just by asking questions. So don't be afraid to ask. People are more helpful than you'd think. But those are the two pieces of advice that I'd have.
I love ask questions because I've learned so much just by asking questions. And it used to be from a standpoint of like, I don't want to sound like an idiot, like I don't know something. But honestly, just asking people or asking experts like, oh, what's this look like? And of course, doing this podcast and getting to interview awesome people like yourself, you just learn so much. And if someone's going to be, oh, why are you asking me that? Not your people. Move on to the next one. But such a simple piece of advice, but so freaking true. So if you're listening to this and you want to check out AJ, all the greatness that he is doing and working with him, head to the show notes and tune in again next week for another episode of That's Business.
If you're looking for a career change and you're not sure where to start, the Resume Rescue can help. Sure, there's no such thing as the perfect fit for everyone, but here at the Resume Rescue, we're on a mission to find the perfect solution for you. Whether it's changing careers, updating a resume, learning LinkedIn, or practicing interviewing, we have you covered. Find us online at theresumerescue.com and find all of our contact info in our show notes.